I'm Dominique Williams, Associate Director at Client Solutions at Cadent.
I'm Jonelle Brown, Director of Global Franchise Planning and Studio Marketing at Paramount.
Awesome. Well, Jonelle, thanks for being here. I really do appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I know it's a busy day ahead, so we'll jump into a couple questions just to kind of set the stage.
Sure.
We'd love to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, sort of set the stage as far as what your role is and how it plays a role in the larger industry.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Of course.
So being on the franchise team, especially a global team, I like to say I bookend the consumer products lifecycle. Mm-hmm. So at the very beginning, it's developing any sales materials needed for our global sales organization to pitch in our movies, both our back catalog of titles and our new releases to licensees and retailers. And sometimes I'll go on those meetings and pitch them directly, but we have a really great global team that handles that. And then once it gets sold in and it goes into the product development lifecycle, I step out of that. I don't see anything, but then I come back at the tail end once the product is about to hit shelves and our either licensees or retailers are working on their overall marketing plan.
Awesome.
So I'll review their plan, and if it's a new release, work very closely with our studio theatrical marketing team to make sure that what we're doing on the consumer product standpoint ladders up into their larger theatrical campaign. And likewise on our back catalog, partnering with our home entertainment team to make sure that we are helping to support their overall strategy for their catalog of titles.
And that's huge, because I feel like for such a legacy brand as Paramount, mm-hmm. To have that sort of IP is so key, and to be able to tap into those consumers is through the means in which you're doing so is really interesting and fun.
Yeah.
I think talking to that point, how do you keep a business that has a heritage in film sort of fresh and innovative from the product perspective on your side? I know you guys have so many established brands within Paramount. Would love to kind of get your perspective on what that looks like on your side.
Yeah, so we work very closely with our research team to understand who are we talking to. And when we have one of our older titles, like a Godfather, for instance,
classic.
We know, very much classic. We know who those original Godfather fans are and people who've been, in love with this movie for over 50 years at this point. Mm-hmm. And then we also want to find that white space in terms of the younger generations and making sure that we were making it hip and cool and relevant. So a couple of years ago, we actually partnered with streetwear brand Kith. Cool. And did a limited edition collection for The Godfather, and it sold out in I think like 7 or 8 minutes or something insane like that. But I think that's a great example of a heritage brand that was able to really tap into that younger, more hip, cooler generation and bring the two together. So that's something that we look to do for all of our catalog titles. Is you don't want to alienate those original mm-hmm. fans, mm-hmm. but how do you continue the longevity and bring in the younger generation so that they can discover it themselves as well?
You mentioned not wanting to alienate, the legacy fans of, certain IP, kind of pivoting to that degree, thinking of a recent film of yours, Mean Girls, that came out. A great film, by the way. When I think about, I would love to kind of get your perspective on what balancing the nostalgia of, a brand like Mean Girls, which, I grew up on and many people in my generation did, but also balancing that with a younger audience that maybe was unfamiliar with Mean Girls before, but now it's a part of their lives as well. We'd love to kind of get your perspective on how that played out.
Yes, and I'm also a Mean Girls fan. I remember when that movie came out, I was in high school as well. And so being that original OG fan for the last 20 years, because we are actually celebrating Mean Girls' 20th anniversary this year, which is incredible. Yeah. I have a very different perspective on Mean Girls. So I'm that person who's like, oh, well, this is so great and I love it so much. But what was really wonderful about Mean Girls, especially the way that it was adapted from a book at first, and then the movie, then a Broadway production, and now this new movie is based on that Broadway production, is that, we're able to identify that there's this younger generation who fell in love with the Broadway production, and then we're able to follow it into the new release of the movie that came out earlier this year. And so for us, it's not alienating those core fans, but also using that as an opportunity to bring in the younger generation to that original movie as well, because we know, they will be excited to see some of their favorite Gen Z stars in the new film, but also reminding them that, this is a 20-year-old property, and so are you able to, identify, and there's some of those through lines between that first movie and the new one in terms of certain quotes and, moments that happen in both films, so it really does connect the two two titles as well.
Keeping those iconic moments throughout.
Yes.
I will say, I was not alienated as a fan of the
Good.
film, so definitely successful to that degree for sure.
And still so funny.
Yeah,
still
really
so
is.
funny.
Great cast too. Kind of pivoting to that degree too, I would love to kind of get your perspective on some of the tactics that you find most successful. I know you mentioned the KIF partnership. Anything like that that you can kind of look back on as examples that were really effective for you that maybe we can expect Paramount to lean into in the future? Any tactics in particular?
Yeah, I think what's important for us, especially in the consumer product space, is listening to our fans. A few years ago, we actually did, if we're sticking with Mean Girls for a second, we actually partnered with General Mills and created Mean Girls Toaster Strudel.
That's
because of the quote in the original movie, Gretchen Wiener says, "My dad, the inventor of Toaster Strudel, would not be too pleased with this."
Yeah.
And so the fact that we were able to create that actual product and really tap into what our fans want. It's having those in-world moments across all of our movies. Even Godfather, we were able to leverage food because that's such a big part of the movie as well. So for us, it's really being able to listen to our fans. They're very vocal,
Especially now.
Yes, and they're very engaged, and so there might be some opportunities to answer what they want. And so that's something that we try to put our thinking caps on when it's something, especially one of our classic titles. So there's a lot of noise and engagement around that. And when it's a new movie, what's really fun is that we get to read the script first to identify from a consumer product standpoint what would make sense. And so being able to sort of pull out a few things, or there are times where we get research or feedback from potentially an early screening or something like that, and we're able to leverage that information and have sometimes a chase opportunity to make something really cool. When the movie Smile came out, there was
Love that film, by the way.
It's really I'm a big scaredy cat, but I will say the marketing team did such a great job. There was that viral moment of all those people wearing that bright yellow shirt and smiling. That for us, we chased that opportunity. We saw that it was going viral, and we're able to put some product out so that fans would be able to get their own Smile gear as well.
Really effective.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down and watching that game, or watching a game, and seeing the people behind the umpire and being like, what is that exactly? I was like, I think I understand what's happening here. I hope it's related to a film. It was a little bit too real.
That team did such a great job.
Amazing job.
Such a great job they did, yeah.
I'll round out with you just on one last question. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on any sort of marketing trends or any trends in general, frankly, that you're excited about or that you can kind of give us some context on.
Yeah, I'm excited, and mainly because I'm a Luddite, so I'm slow to adapt to some technology, and I'd also be curious to know from a social media standpoint, what's the next big thing? Because again, I was a little slow to get up on the TikTok bandwagon, and now I'm obsessed. So what is the next, TikTok? I'm sure it's already out there, and there are the early adopters who are using it and really being able to sort of grow that platform. So I want to keep my eye on what's next.
Yeah, I want to be on top of it as well. I held off for a while, but definitely seeing TikTok as a platform that's been really effective for many, many brands.
Yeah.
So definitely a good point there too.
Awesome.
But thank you so much, Jonelle.
Yeah, thanks for
really,
having
really
me.
wonderful talking to you.
This was great.
Appreciate it.